Welcome back to the third episode of this translated reading of the Tower of Babel. Thank you to all those who left feedback on the previous videos and for giving your time to listen to this one. In this reading, we will be covering chapters 4 through 6 of the first book, and here is what you can expect. We will be exploring the multiplication of the human race and the specific arithmetic associated with it, including charts that propose the propagation of over 20 billion human beings. That's billion with a B. Learning about the first migration of Noah's sons from Mount Ararat and the description of this event from various languages. We will even go through a chronological chart that describes the genealogy of our various characters, including Peleg, Heber, Nimrod, and Magog. There's much more included in this reading, so if that sounds interesting and you would like to learn more about the Tower of Babel, you can learn about it with me. Let's begin. Chapter 4. On the multiplication of the human race, from the flood to the building of the tower. Starting off here, we have a section that didn't quite translate. I did the passage, and it reads as follows. It is based on Genesis, through three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The human race spread throughout the earth. The text is made, the sons of Noah were born, and from them every race of man spread over the whole earth. These are the families of the sons of Noah, next to the peoples and nations, and from them the nations on the earth after the flood are rich. Moses intends to demonstrate in this chapter that from the fig tree, in the primordial world, from one Adam, the whole human race was propagated until the flood. 1,000. This term didn't quite translate, and since it was numerical, I decided to do the passage, and it translates to 1,100 times. So after the flood, at the beginning of the new world, from the tribe of Noah to the sons of Noah, all the earth was completed with inhabitants and cultivators. However, he clearly described the numerous progeny and multiplicity of the three sons of Noah, and the first origin of the diversity of nations, regions, and kingdoms. Yet no one, this term, changing the F to an S, then reads as, let him consider. So possibly in context, yet no one considered. Did not. This term directly translates to, I'm sorry. Now changing all of the F's to S's translates to Swiss. However, just changing the first F to an S, it then translates to suffer, which is probably the more accurate translation. Did not suffer a greater progeny heretofore than the text made him to do, with Moses in this place, not the heads of snow and the leaders of the peoples, leaving the work given to the rest, lest he should waste time in the education of the least useful of falsehoods, which might extend to infinity the generations of this kind. It is true that when we had advanced all these things in the ark of Noah, we sent the lector back to him, and a lector just meaning someone who lectures, say in a college or university. This term translates to historians, so the historians are not without reason surprised how so quickly, or within 275 years from the time until the Tower of Babel, there was such an immense multiplication of men, as the profane writers Herodotus and Diodorus, which are both famed Greek historians, and several others report, through 3 folios, men, the sons of Noah, could have touched, he defines wonder, where he unearths the histories of the human generation. Who kills, or the builder of the Tower of Nimrod, except the women and the little ones? Now this section, I translated more of the passage, and it reads as, that he had led 200,000 armed men into the field. Diodorus tells us that it is Nimrod that is called Belo, who does not, this term here, changing the F's to S's, then read as to be amazed or astonished. Ninus, the son of Nimrod, as, this term here, translated to Eustace of Thessalonica. As Eustace of Thessalonica reports in his commentary on Dionysius of Alexandria, on the site of the city, to found the city of Nineveh. And finally, the small section on the right side reads as follows. How many people could have been born within 275 years after the flood? 140,000 laborers were employed, and this between 295 years after the flood. So great a multitude of men, both in conducting wars and in building cities, could be propagated. How many? 300 or 400 years? It almost became habitable, for if we suppose that the generations were to be renewed in 30 years, 800,000 souls could easily be produced. But in order that the reader may better understand these things, we have decided to show them by means of an arithmetical calculation. Let us suppose, therefore, that the 3 sons of Noah, in the first year of the flood, beget 3 sons, and as many daughters, and in fact all the years of the end of the year, until 30 years of age, when all the sons and daughters were ready to receive children as they were fit. You will find that the number of souls had already reached 360. These, in fact, by mutual marriages, each at 60 years, were able to propagate faith according to the rules of the combinatorial art, to 21,600 souls. For if we had married 60 in 360, we would have produced 21,600. These people, through mutual marriages, could easily reach the number of 1,944,000 souls by mutual marriage until the 9th year, which is evident from the fact that 90 in 21,600. After the flood to the year of 120, through the combinations of new marriages, they could reach 23,328,000,000. That is 23,000 millions, 328 millions, which things can scarcely be conceived by the mind, if it were clearly established by the rules of the combinatorial art. But consider these in the abacus. In the first year after the flood, you will find only 3 children born to the poor. In order that no one should be surprised at this, the incredulous came, still in the time of Nimrod, being filled with human ambition. He was eager to obtain the monarchy, and this term translated to supreme, or in context, the supreme dominion of things. The army was joined together, for Zoroaster, whom we Camus, the grandfather of Nimrod. Now this last section, I translated the entire passage in order to confirm a numerical value, and it reads as follows. In the obelisk of Pamphilus, we find that he led an army of 2 million, which are 200,000 men, against Ninus, the son of Nimrod. So an interesting note here is that we have the numerical value of clearly 2 million, but in the text it states 200,000. I'm unsure if I'm missing something, but we will move on. Diodorus Siculus, Book 3, delivers. This next passage I translated in its entirety because there was 2 terms that didn't translate correctly. It reads as follows. We have another example from the writers themselves, while even the fancied interpreters of fate cannot wonder how out of the 70 Israelites who migrated to Egypt by, now this, I translated the Latin counterpart, and changing the F's to S's, it read, by order of Josephus. Perhaps 210 years ago, they grew into such a progeny as to produce hundreds of thousands of warriors, besides children and women. With Moses, the leader of them, they have been, now this translates to, they were taken from Egypt. And now, to briefly go over this chart. So on the left side, we have this small section which reads as follows. Calculation of the propagation of the human gene to the construction of the tower. Now looking at this chart, in the first 30 years, now it states that the flood had 3 children. However, glancing over at our Latin counterpart, we can see that it refers to the post-diluvium, or after the flood. So after translating the remaining passage, it read along the lines of, in the first 30 years after the flood, 3 children were born, and from there, 360 sons and daughters were born. So the remaining points were quite accurate in their translations, and they read as follows. By multiplying these for 60 years, it can be diluted, and will be produced 21,600 descendants of children. By multiplying these for 90 years, since the flood, will be given 1,944,000 spread of people. And these multiplied for 120 years, and from here to the Tower of Babel, they produce 23,328,000,000 propagation of men. We will not proceed further here, since the matter will proceed almost to infinity. Chapter 5. On the first migration of Noah's sons from Mount Ararat in the plains of the submontane region. Of the language of fiery idiom. Now I did translate a few of the Latin words in this initial sentence, and instead of a fiery idiom, it means or idiomatically. So immediately, which they used after the flood. Let us proceed from the following points to the, now these 2 terms, I translated them directly, however changing the F's to S's, it then reads as established target. So possibly points to the established target, we have first brought the words of the text here, so that we may order the web of the same. Thus Moses differed. Now a quick note, there are different languages within this page and this book, so in some cases they did translate. Whether they're accurate or not, I am unsure. I will read what has been translated, but again, please be discerning and understand that these may not be as accurate as possible. So, moving forward. And let all the land be one language, and other things Hebrea reading. And it happened in their early journey, and they found a valley in the land of Shinar, and he broke Shas? That is to say, now there was a land of one lip, of one of them, And when they had advanced from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and dwelt there. Now this is a section of what looks to be Greek, so it didn't quite translate. I will continue to where the Latin starts up again. That is, and all the earth had one lips, and one voice for all, and it came to pass, when they moved from the eastern regions, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and dwelt there. Now I believe I translated just this last section here, and it says the Chaldaic reading has it thus. And it reads as follows. And hey all area, for a sharp sleeper and a sharp mallet, and hey Chaldaic reading. In Mitilon, in Kedama, and they will forget in Kita, in area Dovbal and Yetivo Taman. Unsure if that made any sense. Moving on. That is, and the whole earth was of one language, of one speech. It happened when they were prosperous in the beginning, and found a field in the land of Babel. They dwelt there. Now, we have this little section that says Arabic reading has it, and it reads as follows. And all the people of the earth were the people of the language, and carried the reading, Arabica, and the speech was sweeter, and as if they had departed from the east, and they had sold it in the country of Sidur, and they had a great bloodshed. That is, now the whole world was of one language, the same speech, and when the rest of the people in the east found a field in the land of Baghdad, that is, in Babylon, and they, now we have, it says fed there. Now this could possibly be sat down there or possibly settled there. Here he conflates the Syriac texts. It was therefore a land of one lip, and of all words, or as this is Greece or Greek, so or as Greece has it, it was a land of one lips or one lip, and the voice of all was the same, or as Chaldaic. Now Chaldaic was essentially one of the ancient Semitic people that formed the dominant element in Babylonia. All the land has one language and the same speech, or, finally, to use Arabic, the whole world had one language and one speech. Let us explain what is to be understood by the lips. When the lips of formed words become injurious, no word can be uttered at the end of the lips. When no one is able to speak without open lips and motive, rightly, the text of the text puts the lip for the language and the mouth for effect. Therefore, in the whole world, or as Arabic has it, where he names the gathering of the whole human race, there was one language, that it is true that all the people who propagated the faith in immense numbers after the flood and the transmigration spoke one language. Whence is it sought in the first place what language was that? I responded that the primordial language which Noah and his sons had learned through the continuous tradition of the patriarchs before the flood, so also the prodigal taught the same to the sons of the fugitives, when nothing else besides this prevailed in the world. And whosoever doubts about this, he may appear to be justifiably infatuated. On this merit, however, who could doubt whether this ancient language had been promulgated by all the same eloquent tenor and pronunciation for the space of 100 years? Finally, on this page, there are two sections on the right side. The first reads as, "What does he notice on his lips?" The one below reads as follows, "What language had been used after the flood? Wherefore, as prophesied to me, the doubt is equal. He is praised by agreement. Now this term translates directly to I will answer, and even changing the F to an S, it still reads as I answer. So, either I will answer or I answer. With every day us let experience teach, that no idiom is pronounced by all the peoples of any nation with such perfection that it does not deviate in any way from the purer language of, now this is use, which prevails in the courts of the prince, and it is clearly evident in the Italian, German, French, Japanese, and Arabic idioms. Now this term here, changing the F to an S, read as and the like. So the aforementioned languages and the like. It is believed in Italy that the language of Tusca is the purest of all, which, however, differs in purity from the original purity of Milan, Genoa, Bologna, Venice, among the Samnites, Apulia, and Calabria, and yet it is one and the same language, apparently adopted in Italy, which they all speak, and surely the natives understand each other. And I would also like to understand the rest of the languages of each nation, so that there is scarcely a language to be found in the world which does not allow itself to be corrupted. Let this be done from the comfort of neighboring regions and peoples, from the genius of particular provinces, and the nature local. 5. From the invention of new words, which is still true. Not to say, in the, this is separated, or in the separated provinces by changing the F to an S, but in the great cities they define different ways of speaking, as experience has taught us here in Rome. It is therefore asked how to make the text. The earth was therefore of one lip, and the co-rounding of the fingers. Is it to be understood? I reply, if indeed there was a language common to all, the ways of pronouncing it, which we call dialects, were different. For as they were divided into 3 tribes according to the generations of the 3 sons of Noah, so also only the purest language was used among the chiefs of the tribes, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and their sons, and their grandsons. This term translated to remained, so their grandsons remained. The popular truth and the plebeian language from various people by mixing, as we know to happen in all other languages, from the purer language. Indeed, there is some declination, but not so much, that it does not let them understand each other. Let us know each other, and by doing this the text can easily be explained, as is evident from what has been said a little before. What indeed that language was properly, we shall expound in the 3rd book, God-giving. With these prophecies, we now turn to expounding the other part of the text. Now maybe this is section 2 of the 5th chapter, on the life of the early mortals in the submontane region of Mount Ararat, completed many years. The great controversy here between the interpreters arises from the journey of transmigration, first from the mountain to the plain, then to the land of Shinar. Indeed, while many are unable to understand how the people from the east are said to have moved, when yet Armenia is not eastern, and the boreal reflects the land of the Shinar, of Shinar. Indeed, when I find in this not a little incompetence of geography on the part of the scribes, so as to make the text unblemished, we have little thought to settle this controversy. We say, therefore, that there is no account of the name of the place in this first generation, that the name of the place is to be taken into account, that the first mountain Ararat, which Noah and his 3 sons inhabited after the flood, and with the propagation of men growing in immensity, Finally, into the valleys of the mountains, he went down to inhabit the plains. Armenia will therefore be described in two ways by geographers, one minor, the other major. The greater one, which borders on the smaller Asia from the west. From the north of Georgia, the region of 5 Colchis, and I believe Colchis, hopefully that's the way it is pronounced, is an historic region of Georgia, which is called Iberia and Macrylia. This next term, unknown, really looks at me at noon. The greater, indeed, from the north quarter is the Caspian Sea, from the west the Lesser Armenia, from the east Persia, and to the south the Great Rest. And finally these small sections. The top left reads as, whether there were various dialects in that language. The next, on the left side, how primitive was the language after the flood. And the last on the right reads as double Armenia. He reflects on the part of the treacherous, as the paper appended here teaches, and in this is Ararat, the most famous mountain of which we refer the reader to, when we have made a great deal of it in Noah's Ark. Now, in order to return to the beginning, it is necessary to explain the manner in which those emigrants from the east arrived in the land of Sennaar. Now this term, Sennaar, refers to a region, specifically the southern region of Mesopotamia used in the Hebrew Bible, just as clarification. In order that this may be done, I will begin the matter from an egg on Mount Ararat, the Ark of. Now this term here, I ended up translating some of the passage, and it translates to on Mount Ararat the Ark stood. It is delivered. Noah, this term, translated to indeed. So I did a bit more of the passage, and it reads as follows. Noah, however, was exasperated. As if we were hunting, first excavated the flat tracts of the mountains, not indeed in one and the same place, but now here, now there, according to the ferocity of the places, and according to the opportunity, for it is rare that you do not think of one particular mountain, but in a huge lounge and extended to the east of the concatenated mountains. Now this term refers to a series, or united in a series, or like a chain, so a chain of mountains. This next section, as you can see, it reads as the itineraries of the traders of Armenia. So a quick note, it didn't quite translate because there is a different set of typography within the main text. I'm unsure what the language is. However, the point being that when I translated the passage myself, it did not read as the itineraries of the traders of Armenia. It read as follows. The itineraries of the Persians and the Armenians will be described as quickly as possible, which the Chaldean Periphrastes mountains, I'm unsure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, just as a note, please be objective with this information, because I do not go through and translate everything. So moving on. The mountains of Gordu. Ptolemy indeed calls it the Gordians, and places it at a latitude of 47 degrees, as you may learn from a geographical map. And then these long and broad mountains, Noah and his sons were the first unanimous interpreters to find the fields where they had settled, and the children of the sons instilled in them the art of killing. At last he was able to force a large number of warriors, dismounted, to the foothills of the mountains, not bearing a copious progeny, to settle the plainer parts of the submontane regions, and there, as it were, to found a larger colony in the more fertile lands. And no one, this term here, changing the F to an S, it then reads as to persuade. Now, it did directly translate to let him pervert. I'm going to postulate that it's probably persuade. So it would read, and no one persuaded us or persuades us from the same place, the beginning of the migration of the peoples at once, may be, but for many years, which is clearly evident from the context of history, when between the building of the tower and the flood, as a little choreographic by the calculus of proofs, a space of 275 years should be determined. It is therefore evident that they spent many years partly in the habitation of the mountains, partly in the plains, and partly in the journey to the plain of Sennaar. For let us suppose 20 years in the mountains of, now this term translated directly to completely, however changing the F's to an S, it then reads as persistently or to have persisted. 75 in the plain places, in the true journey of Sennaar, which, according to the geographical relations, is a journey of 2 men, 5 years, and, now this term, there was no translation, however changing the F's to an S, it then reads as consuming or to have consumed. So possibly in context, 5 years it will consume in relation to the journey. So taking 2 men 5 years, or consuming 5 years. 100 years will appear, which number is far away from years of construction of the tower. How can it be said that he arrived from the plain of Ararat from the east in the field of Sennaar? It is certain that the immense plains at the foot of Mount Ararat, into which they entered from the valleys of the mountains, were once made fertile, are now partly fertile, and found, when they extended to the southern part at length, let the, now this is Persian Sea, so let the Persian Sea be extended, and the long furrow of the mountains struck. Who does not see the plains and regions of Sennaar properly eastward? And it is clear from the paper attached here. In those regions, therefore, for many years, Noah and his progeny have been eminently famous, because he found the most suitable fields for cultivating, and because of the abundance of those rising on the slopes from here to there. He also found this paradones. I couldn't find any information on what specifically this is. Paradones for planting vines. I'm not sure if this is some sort of agricultural tool or mechanism. Unknown. Let me know if you know in the comments below. For as the reading of the text of the Maker has an Arabic text, and it was done when they migrated from the east, where he openly teaches, let them rest in the eastern camp. That is, they unanimously, now this term translated to persisted. So they unanimously persisted, and from there the transmigration in the best way made them orphans. Now from this point there is another language which could not be translated, and I'm in no position to attempt it. So if anyone is familiar with this text, please let me know what this states. I'm unsure if this is Greek. We're going to move on to the last sentence of this page, which reads as, and there are many mountains in Armenia. It just started to rain here, so I do apologize for the additional noise if you can hear that. And there is one section on the left, and it reads as follows. The first people did not move immediately after the flood towards the land of Sennaar. Many plains in which, however, the vine does not grow easily. Many valleys of the mountains, some of which indeed have moderately successful results, some very successful. in such and such regions, which were called Media, Persia, and Bactria, when you were Noah, you should dwell, plant vineyards, teach your children the institutions of the whole art of agriculture. There should be no doubt, for if he had imbued them with the necessary arts of human life, they certainly would not have been able to lead such a large group of men. Whence they differed between the labors, some plowed the fields with the plow to cultivate them, while others carried the produce of corn, vegetables, and herbs. Some cut wood for coffee grounds, to protect the faith against all injuries of the air. They made coals in the kitchen, and then others. Some worked as millers, others as bakers. There was no lack of hunters of animals, to work out skins suitable for sheltering, one of the many arts of smithing, until now the necessaries, or possibly the necessities, were exclusively applied to all kinds of instruments. There were no lack of potters, who were continually occupied in making calcareous stones, and in baking in the furnace, and in making lime and cement, again in the weaving art of both men and women to prepare the lines of the weaves, and to cover the body decently. It is really raining. I'm gonna have to close some windows. Hold on. Since indeed the use of ropes and cords for cattle and men, as it was most necessary, is verifiable that they succumbed to this art of, now this term here translated to hospitality, so the art of hospitality, and of reason teaches the women indeed, having left the said more robust arts, some of them were first employed in governing the animals, in milking cows, goats, and females in making butter and coffee, other hens and chickens, eggs, which they had the care of collecting. There was no lack of things in the art of making vividly by weaving the clothes or the cloths, by threading the linen into threads. The greater part indeed. Now this next section didn't quite make sense, so I translated the passage and it reads as follows. He was busy with kitchen chores, and most of them, together with the said arts, devoted themselves to the care of the sick, and to the education of their children, and in order that all things might be done in a confederacy, heretofore as the leaders of the peoples, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, under the king of all, Noah, were presiding, who, according to the division of the tribes, had their prefects and administrators of things, to whom they had no care, lest they the abundance of life, hindered by labors, should fail. And when the difficulties encountered, I have no doubt that, to expediency them, as if to the chief of the human race, the caput, king, the emperor, assembled in these regions at that time, resorted to Noah. Here indeed, having assembled the firstborn sons and grandsons, he decided what to do now, and what to avoid, as if by a public council. And these are the things which we have taken to say about the lives and actions of the sons of men before the flood of spring, and although nothing of this is contained in the written works, the interpreters indeed did not touch it. But it seems to pre-write the dictum of reason correctly, that this should be done so. If anyone wills it, all things have been done in vain, that Noah, the king's father, and the divinely inspired creation, who does not see the alien, for to use... Now here we have these three terms again, still unsure of what these mean. Moving on. He had chosen him to be the founder of the reborn world, and so he had also chosen him to infuse the peoples of an innumerable multitude, and to rule them with now with this term, I needed to change the F's to an S, and it then read as individual. so in context, and to rule them with individual and incomparable talents of mind, to make the weight of the world worthless. And finally, the two sections on the left side of the page. The first reading as follows: the skills with which Noah trained his people. The second reads as: men of both sexes were chiefly engaged in these arts, or both men and women. Chapter 6. Of the time of the transmigration from the east into the land of Sennar after the flood, to the year 132, which is the rise of Peleg. Now Peleg is a biblical character, according to the Hebrew Bible. He lived to the age of 239 years. Now according to Genesis and Chronicles, it was during the time of Peleg that the earth was divided. Traditionally, this is often assumed to be just before, during, or after the failure of the Tower of Babel, whose construction was traditionally attributed to Nimrod. The meaning of the earth being divided is usually taken to refer to a patriarchal division of the world, or possibly just the eastern hemisphere, into allotted portions among the three sons of Noah for future occupation, which is basically what we are currently reading about, which is quite interesting. So, moving on. And the transmigration of the nations, at what time or in what year the flood happened. However, the records may be filed, as far as we have been able to gather from the calculus of the chronologists. We believe it is not improbable that it happened a little before the year 132, at the birth of Peleg, son of Heber. To make it more clear, I suppose the first people after the flood, the sons of Noah and his sons, were taken out of the ark, not at once into the plain of the mountain, as we also hinted at in the previous chapters, but they died, and yet for several years they first flourished in the plains of the mountains, and there they first propagated, cultivated the fields, and others having devoted themselves to the practice of the arts, and each excreting an immense multitude of children. The plains of the foot mountains already fit for bearing crops, they descended into the lower regions. I suppose he was fertile. It is also certain and appropriate to the reason that the said progeny was not soon able to leave the mountain, to travel to the land of Sennar, to fight several battles in the cultivated regions which at the end of the time were called true times. Now this section didn't quite translate, so I translated the passage for clarification, and it reads as follows: and still Armenia, Media, and Persia were said to have stood, where also he did not confound the rulers. He ruled in great order, first to Noah, then to the three sons of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the heads of the nations, and to whom, as it were, the most skillful of the arts, and already 100 years before the flood, in them having been trained by their father Noah, they undoubtedly learned all the propagandistic arts to make life amusing, the way and the reason, so that before the females of the earth were dispersed throughout the world, they were deprived of them, the end of which the piercing reason of human life could not be fixed, but from this fate in the preceding chapter. Tornilus? I'm unsure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm unsure what this term is. Collects certain conjectures from the genealogy of the sons of Noah, as will be seen in a little while, of Nemrod, however, which is the subject of our argument. This term is established or instituted, so the only institution or establishment in which year he was born, when he moved from the east, how many years he lived, when he was one of the transmigrants, and the architect of the tower. Now this last sentence didn't quite translate, so it reads as remains to be investigated, I suppose the third, he made a faithful and exact torneal, or torneal? I'm unsure again what this term is. It seems to be related to the first word in this passage. Sorry, not passage. This section where it says tornilus. If anyone has any thoughts as to what this could be, please let me know. Who wrote the year of the birth of Noah's sons, through the years of the flood to 152 and 275, with ease and beauty, in order that the reader may be able to form a single account of the years. I have chosen to append the genealogy here, for from this it is clear what is to be fancied about the aforesaid difficulty, from which the series of generations of Noah's sons can be gathered. So this next section, please bear with me, because a lot of it is essentially in point form, and it is what they said, it is a genealogy or a chronological account of what happened at specific years. So let's begin with the start. After the flood, therefore, in the first year of Noah's life, 601, he was born, according to the opinion of Tornielli. Now here we have this term again. So I'm going to postulate that this is some sort of character, or historian, or chronologer, because it states, and other interpreters. So some sort of historian. Elam, son of Shem, the firstborn. After the flood, in the 8th year of the 2nd month, Aphraxad, the son of Shem, Gomer, the son of Japheth, and Chus, son of Ham, in the life of Noah, arise from the world founded. So a quick side. I came to a realization that the term Poft, which was used in both the introduction and the first chapter of Book 1, is most likely the term post. If you look at the Latin section, it reads as Post diluvium, or post-flood, or as it is translated, after the flood. So, moving on. And finally, the last two sections on the left side, the first one reading as Noah stayed in the mountains. The next section reads as follows. The migration from the mountain to the land of Shinar did not happen immediately. After the flood, in the year 3, or possibly in the 3rd year, they are said to have been born Magog, the son of Japheth, and Mithraim, or Misraim, the son of Ham. Of the life of Noah, 603, and this last section, which seems to be repeated in every note, reads as, from the world founded, or in the year the world was founded. There is a flood in the 4th year of life. Noah, 604, is thought to have been born Chenan and Lud, sons of Ham, in the year the world was founded. They are believed to have been born after the flood in the year 5, or the 5th year of Noah's life, 605. Tubal, the son of Japheth, and Aram, the son of Shem, and Mozak, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in the 7th year of Noah's life, 607, he was born Thiras, son of Japheth, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in 38 AD, Phaxad, son of Shem, beget Canaan, in the life of Noah, 638, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in the year 68 of Noah's life, 668, Canaan begot, now this Sail, it's either Sail or Salt, and Chus Nemrod, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in the year 97, Sail, he beget Heber, in the life of Noah, 697, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in the year 132, Noah 732, Heber beget Peleg, the first division of nations, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in the year 162, the life of Noah 762, the building of the tower, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in the year 275, give to the different nations, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in the year 276, the reign of Nimrod, Babylon, in the year the world was founded. After the flood, in the year 350, Noah dies, in the year the world was founded. This last point was a bit unclear, but I'll read it as it is translated. Can there be a flood? 360. Ninus reigns. In the year of the... I don't know if this is the condition. Unknown. Moving on. From this term here means epilogue, or epilogue of genealogy, or from this genealogical epilogue. It is clear that all men in the world at that time were established until the rise of Peleg in the east, and there was a single language for all, and until the confusion of languages that happened in the year after the flood 275 of the nations from the east, a little before the rise of Peleg, there had sprung up an immense multitude of men, so that Noah, guided by the divine light, lest he should be born in confusion in so great a multitude, it was known to the three regions of the world, according to the three sons of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It was divided into 3 tribes, which happened about a year, as is evident from the table, about the rise of Peleg, about the year, about the 130th year, and now it is clear from the previous genealogy, the 3 sons of Noah, with all the sons of the sons, the grandson, the great-grandson, and the great-grandson's offspring, perhaps taken out of the ark, before they went into the land of Shinar, partly in the mountains of Ararat, partly in the Swiss-born in the mountains, or possibly the Swiss-born mountains, regions of the east, whose names, which are placed in the table, do not mark the chiefs of the tribe, and the patriarchs, the progenitors of innumerable peoples. To prove this, by noting that in this place the division of nations must be understood in 2 ways. First, indeed at the rise of Peleg, whence Heber his father gave his son the name of the division, for at this time, as most interpreters relate, the first division of nations by Noah took place, whence in this place it is not to be smoked that divinity, which may cause a confusion of tongues, which was infused by Noah by the will of God, and which was infused by the Noahic touch. The other, indeed, reap in the destruction of the tower. Those who confuse the one with the other are very delusional, when the latter is even more dear to the heart. The distribution of the whole earth to the tribes of the 3 sons of Noah was accomplished in the year in which I have spoken. This is indeed what is brought into execution by the confusion of tongues, and hence the Josephus. Now this did not translate. It's an unknown passage here, so I'll skip it and move on. That is, he calls the confusion of tongues, because this confusion was the cause of the division of nations. Indeed, at the former end, this is confusion, so no confusion was transfixed. Nor at the later end, the one quiet, the other full of turbulent motions. That happened before the rise of Peleg. This happened in the middle of the same time. This term here, translated directly to pact, however changing the F to an S, translated to fixed. So possibly fixed from the authority of Genesis chapter 10 verse 25, where Heber gave his son the name Peleg, because in his days the earth became rich. Those who confuse the confusion of tongues with the previously mentioned division of the world, are seen to confess the poor when the confusion of tongues in the year 275 of the flood, that in the year 132 of the flood, the difference of 143 years occurred. And in these words, Josephus alludes, Poro Heberus beget Jectan and Pelagum, who was born while the dwellings were being distributed. I would like to bring here the innumerable authors of this slander, because the reason for the division of nations would dictate that they should be so faithful, whence this name Heber was given to the son of Peleg, not so much by natural ingenuity as by prophetic indifference. Certainly, in the book, which is so this term, Seder Olam, refers to what I believe is the Seder Olam Araba, or the Great Order of the World, which is a 2nd century Hebrew language chronology detailing the dates of biblical events from creation to Alexander the Great's conquest of Persia. That is, it is called the Order of the Starches. Rabbi Josephus says in this agreement, Heber was a great prophet because he was inspired by the Spirit of the Father and named his son in order to make a future division. At the end of his life, whom Saint Hiram met in the Hebrew quests, and this term here, I wasn't quite sure what this was. It is possibly a character named Gilbert Genebrard, sorry, that last name's a tricky one, who was a learned French professor and lived in the 16th century from 1535 to 1597. Peleg was called by the prophetic word providence, that in this division of the world there was more divine providence than human children or wives. And so in the year of Heber, 34 was swept away, and 35 began, and the flood 132, not the year 102. Peleg was born, in which year the patriarch Noah, when he saw that his nephews were already in such great numbers, that they were already helping to establish many colonies, and he believed that a migration from this life was imminent, opened to them a divine mind about the division of the habitable world. What a beautiful fane, Epiphanius. I'm not sure if this is a character of history or a specific term. That remains to be seen. So continuing on. What a beautiful fane Epiphanius advanced in anchorage. They all knew, says he, Noah, a married man, who, when he was left behind, caused a flood, and his 3 sons, so that he who was married tried to make his children pious, so that no evil would fall upon them, as those who they perished in the flood. But he propounded piety to them by teaching and by oath. Now propound is to put forward or to offer for consideration, propose, while he exacted from each one of them kindness towards his brother, and divided indeed, as if the heirs of the world had been confounded by God. He had given the world to the sons of the tribe, and he divided each part near the fort into clays. Now I translated the following section because it had many different regions or states or cities relating to various peoples, and wanted to ensure that we get the most accurate representation of what is happening here. And it reads as follows. Indeed, the lot fell to Sem, the firstborn, from Persia, the Bactris, to India, and the region of the Rhinoceros, which is situated between Egypt and Palestine on the side of the Red Sea. But to them, Cham, the land reaches from Rhinoceros to Gades, or Gades, to the south. But to the 3rd son of Japheth came those which look to the north, from Media to Gades, or Gades, and Rhinocurus. Now I'm unsure what this last term is, both of them, Rhinoceros or Rhinocurus. I couldn't find much relating to it, so if anyone listening has any insights or data points, please post them in the comments. Moving on. But all these things were passed away by smoke in Noah's Ark, possibly in Book 3, on the division of the Gentiles, where the reader will find another division. As the number of men grew, Noah did nothing else but to follow the commandment of the Lord. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth. At the very beginning of the transmigration, it happened then, that by the persuasion of Noah, the 5 regions of the east, no longer bearing an increase of men, were recommended by God to be transmigrated, namely from the east to the west, that is, to the land which he desired. She was called Sennar. And lastly, this section on the left, it reads as, when and in what year did Peleg rise? Now, starting off this page, this term here means will consider. So in context, continuing on from the last page, would read as follows. Nor should I consider the people of this kind, who ran to several millions, continued that journey between the eastern region of the, now this section here means Persians or Armenians, and the land of Sennar. They removed the gap between them, yet where they found a convenient place, and stayed there. For who could provide enough supplies for such a multitude? It will happen that the snows of the earth, which they crossed, will be able to be nourished, as if already prepared by nature's nourishment, whence it is verifiable that Noah, the leader of all, in this delay to cultivate the lands, to gather the fruits, to hunt the animals which are now infinitely multiplied, to co-give with various labors, to the filial duties. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Filial duties essentially means befitting a son or a daughter, so duties of the sons and the daughters. Not to go beyond those which had already brought feces from the east. So many nutritious foods are missing. There was no lack here of articles of every kind, deadly to human life, which were carried by innumerable beasts, and sometimes rivers of water for crossing, of which not a few were encountered on the way. At the time of Noah's providence, boats and rafts, to man the most apt to be transported. They were already prepared for the transport of cattle, horses, oxen, herds, and fences were soon made of strong compact beams, and with this agreement from place to place, from region to region, they traveled for a long time, not even with the intention of finding the land of Sennar, for they had not heard of it, which apparently no living man had yet inhabited, nor did they intend it as the end of their journey. But little by little, after the manner of the, now bear with me here, this term, castromentantium. Castromentantium means of the campers. So from region, as I have said, to a region where they found a convenient place, and fertile with necessaries, or possibly the necessities, not endowed only with amenity, but also to irrigate the rivers to the greatest extent, so that they would find the wildest abundance of things, which in lust was called the land of Sennar. From the, now this term here, I translated a bit more of the passage because it sounded a bit strange and was a bit jumbled, and it reads as follows, changing the F's to S's. From the chattering of the teeth. So from the chattering of the teeth, and Babylon, from the confusion of tongues. And finally, the last 2 sections on this page, the top left, translates to the following. The people did not make a continuous journey from the east to the west, but stopped with a delay of many years in the intermediate places. And the last one reads as, I have already prepared the tools for human life. That concludes this episode with the reading of chapters 4 through 6. The next chapter in this book, which will start the next episode, is titled The Record of the Land of Sennar, which they found when they came from the east, overflowing with pleasures. With the end of this episode, I'll leave you with a few questions to consider. The various numerical values we read through these chapters, are they purely numerical? Are they symbolic? Could they be transmitting specific knowledge or formulas wrapped in this story or tale? In relation to some of our characters being many years old, Noah being 600 years and older, Peleg living 239 years, is this truly their physical age? Is this possibly another dating technique or a chronological marker of our history using the ages of characters? Maybe you have questions. Let me know in the comments below. If you stayed through the entire presentation, thank you. It is greatly appreciated. If you gained any value from it, give it a like. Let me know what your thoughts are below on anything discussed in the presentation. So, if you would like to continue to learn about the Tower of Babel, you can learn about it with me.